Hi, this is Rob Packard from Medical Advice Academy. Sorry it's been about a month since I joined you live on YouTube. Today we're going to talk about quality system planning and changes. If you haven't been aware, Canada made recently, in the last year, a big change to their quality system requirements. In the regulations, um, they have a section on post-market surveillance. They have a section on adverse event reporting. They called it mandatory problem reporting. But back in December of 2020, they released a new law. I believe the law was Vanessa's Law, and that resulted in new regulation for Health Canada. And the new regulation is called SOR 2020 262. And so that's the code of the regulation. Just like in the US, we have 21 CFR 820. For Health Canada, this new regulation is SOR 2020 262. And the new regulation is specific to two areas. The first half was implemented by June of this year, and it's already in the regulation. The Canadian Medical Device Regulation is SOR 98282. So in that regulation, we now have incident reporting instead of mandatory problem reporting. They also made some changes related to when you have to notify Health Canada of changes and adverse events in other countries, new risks related to a product that's being sold in Canada. They made some changes there. They created new laws giving them the ability to request or demand additional information about adverse events, and based on post-market surveillance, they gave themselves the permission to mandate additional testing that would be done to address any problems they see with products based on post-market surveillance. But the big change that's going to impact all of us that are doing business in Canada is that on December 23rd, 2021, this is next Thursday, they're going to require summary reporting for post-market surveillance. So very similar to what Europe is requiring for post-market surveillance or periodic summary update reports, the PSURs, Canada is going to have their same version of that that is required as of December 23rd, 2021. So next week is when you have to comply by it. So if you've gone along nice and easy the last year and said, oh, there's no changes to Canada, no changes to Canada, you had a year warning and you didn't know about it. So, in fact, if you were really paying attention, you had 2 years warning because they submitted a draft to everybody for comment, and nobody probably follows the comments of drafts, but that is something that they do. In 2019, they issued a draft, it had a comment period, then made it a law, and the regulation was released on December 23rd of 2020, and now the second part of it comes into force on December 23rd next week. So to celebrate December 23rd, and for those of you that celebrate Christmas, maybe a little Christmas present to you, we're doing a webinar next week so you can have it as training. Do I expect everybody to show up on the 23rd? No. You're more than welcome to. It'll be a live session so you can ask questions. But the purpose of the training is to give companies that are doing business in Canada a training webinar that they can give all their employees that are involved in post-market surveillance to explain how they're supposed to create these post-market surveillance reports. Excuse me. So that's the purpose of next Wednesday's training, is to give you a live webinar that will be recorded during the live session, and then you can replay it for your employees, and you can watch it later if you're taking the day off, on post-market surveillance summary reports for the compliance with this new regulation. But the topic of today's session is, when you have something like that occur, how in the world do you manage that change in your quality system? Because that's not a small change. We have to update our post-market surveillance procedure. We have to update our training for everybody in the company that is involved in post-market surveillance. We have to update our post-market surveillance plans for all our product families that are sold in Canada so that they reflect this new post-market surveillance reporting requirement, these summary reports. And we actually have to create the reports. So we need resources for that, and we need to submit them. So for all these things that we're going to have to do, how do you manage that change? Well, the right tool to use is a quality plan. So whenever you have a new regulation, you have a revised regulation, updated regulation, a new standard, a new updated to a standard, a revision to a standard, that's when you use a quality plan. Some people aren't familiar with, well, what is a quality plan? It's not just a document that says on the top quality plan. It's a plan for implementing changes. Just like any planning that you do, it usually has steps that are sequential or chronological. They'll usually say who's going to do what, when they need to get it done by, and what the format should be when they're done. So quality planning in ISO 1345 2016, in section 5.4.2, it says that you shall have quality plans for changes to your quality system and to maintain the quality system and to implement the quality system when it's brand new. So if you're launching into Canada, you're going to need a quality plan to address all the specific Canadian requirements. If you're already in Canada, you're going to need a quality plan to address these new regulations, the SOR 220-262. So that's the quality planning requirement. So there's no prescribed format. So come up with your own plan format. But it's a great idea to have quality plan at the top. It's a great idea to have a revision date on it. So as you make changes and updates to it, you update that revision. It would be a great idea to have a scope on that. So what is in this quality plan and what is not in this quality plan? So this particular quality plan might be limited to just the companies that are going to be doing business in Canada, only the products that are going to be licensed in Canada, and only those only the areas that are going to be affected, which is going to be your incident reporting or mandatory problem reporting if you're using the old terminology, and you should update that. You're going to have your post-market surveillance procedure updated, your post-market surveillance plans updated, which should be in your device master file or technical file for your product. And then last but not least, you should have training records for all your employees. You also, if you're one of the companies that out there that has not watched my how to do the process approach to auditing and you're still using checklists, then you should update your checklist to include something for the post-market surveillance summary reports. And you should have somebody qualified in that doing the audits of it. So that's the quality planning piece. With any plan, not only do you have who's going to do it, when they're going to do it, and what the deliverable is, but then you should have a check. You remember the old Deming process here? We have plan, do, check, act. So the planning, you write your plan. You do, you implement all the steps. Then you check it. That in this case would probably be an internal audit by somebody qualified to audit post-market surveillance and trained on the new Canadian regs. So I'm going to have to add that to my resume. I've got to write that down. Add to Rob's resume. Training on SOR 220-262. Real time, I thought of that. And then the last thing is the act. So you're going to find, oh, we forgot this, or oh, we could do this better. Or if you have a really good consultant, they're going to say, oh, well, why don't you do this? And this will make it more efficient. And what if this happens? How are you going to address that? The checking process is going to identify opportunities for improvement and nonconformities in areas where you're not compliant. And then you're going to have to write up a CAPA plan for those. So a corrective action plan for how to address any deficiencies or to address suggestions for improvement to that process. So that's what should be in your plan. Now, the checking part, the auditing part, you should have that in your internal audit plan, and you might do a specific standalone individual process audit. That's something that we've been doing a lot more of. With remote auditing, we found it's easier to do 90-minute audits and just audit one process. We get a more thorough audit that way, and you only have to block off 90 minutes of your time instead of a whole day or multiple days in a row. So we're doing a lot more individual process audits, and this would be a perfect candidate. Once you implement the changes to your post-market surveillance, then do an individual process audit. Once you've done the internal audit, now would be a really good time to do a management review and to review your audit results. Now, if 6 months ago or a year ago you did a management review, what you should have been doing in that management review is identifying that we have a new regulation. It's going to change the requirements for post-market surveillance and incident reporting. We're going to have to update our quality manual and our procedures that are related to those two processes. And we're going to have to come up with a quality plan for that. So the requirement for identifying new and revised regulatory requirements is 5.6.2L in one of the inputs to your management review process. And then the planning part is now in 2016, they added this 5.6.3C to have a plan for implementing changes to the quality system to comply with new and revised regulatory requirements. So you have the planning, you have the manager review where you bring it up to everybody, and the output is we're going to come up with a quality plan for this change. And so that's 5.4.2, 5.6.2L, and 5.6.3C. So that's where it fits in ISO 1345-2016, this quality planning and managing change piece. But you've got to remember to go back and check all the places that this is going to impact. So it's going to impact internal audit planning. It's going to impact your management reviews because you have to review post-market surveillance feedback. Remember, feedback is the post-market surveillance section. So you have to review this in your management reviews. So you should have something now in there for your management review for the summary reports for Canada. And maybe that's something good for next Wednesday or next Thursday's training webinar. So post-market surveillance section in management review. I don't think that was on my agenda, so we're going to add that. So this is what you really need to make sure that you're doing is where can it affect? So will it affect my management review? Will it affect my internal auditing? Will it affect my training requirements? Will it affect my mandatory, my incident reporting procedure now that it's called? Will it affect my post-market surveillance procedure? Will it affect my post-market surveillance plans for each of the different products? Will it impact my audits? So I'm going to have auditors coming in for my MD SAP audit. What can I anticipate they're going to be looking for? Am I going to have the last 2 years of data summarized in a summary report for them? You're also going to have you have class 1 requirements, and then you have 2, 3, and 4. So the class 1s, every 2 years you need to create those summary reports. Every year you have to create the ones for the 2, 3, and 4. So you can have different requirements for different classifications of devices. So there's quite a bit that you have to work on updating when you have this kind of a regulatory change. And you have to do it thoroughly, and then you have to check it, and you're going to have corrections that you have to do after the fact. So that I just used one example. I'm focusing on that now because we have this change that's imminent as of next Thursday. If you're interested, I'll put hyperlinks down below for signing up for the webinar on post-market surveillance, as well as our post-market surveillance procedure, which right now is 50% off. But let's pick something else. Let's pick some other kind of change that we might implement. And we'll pick something really simple. Let's say that your company is no longer going to be offering batteries that are disposable, and your company is going to be using reusable batteries, rechargeable batteries. No big deal, right? We're going to go out and we're going to change the design of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 products, and we're going to swap out the AA batteries that were disposable with rechargeable batteries that are in there. And it's going to be a lithium-ion battery because it has so much better performance. And this should be great. Yeah, and we don't have to even redesign the device. We just swap out the battery. Or maybe we do a slight modification to the battery compartment. But basically, the device is unchanged except for that battery compartment. Well, the battery is a critical component in your electrical safety. And now you're going to have to do additional electrical safety testing specific to the requirements for the battery. Because if you have to redesign that battery compartment, that's going to be some changes you have to, you're going to have to do new testing for that. If you're going to change the housing, you might also have to redo your EMC testing. And so that's 2 things you're going to have to do testing for. In addition to that, there's a different standard that applies to a disposable alkaline battery versus a rechargeable lithium ion battery. Very different standards, very different requirements, because we've all heard about lithium ion batteries getting hot and catching on fire. We don't want that. So there's an actual standard for medical devices on lithium ion batteries that you're going to have to do testing for that. You're going to have new labeling requirements. All your IFUs, your instruction for use, those have to all be updated. You're going to have to update all your packaging with indicating that your products actually have a lithium ion battery in it. You're going to have to retrain all your shipping employees to put those special labels on the outside of the box and check the boxes on their FedEx and UPS to indicate that they're shipping lithium ion batteries and doing that correctly. You're going to have to notify your notified body of a change if you have the product CE marked. You're going to have to notify the FDA of the change. How? Probably a special 510K. It's just falling under a simple area. You're not changing the indication for use, but you are updating the label to include this new warning and the charging instructions, and you had to redo some testing. So I wouldn't be surprised if the FDA would, if you go through the decision tree on device modifications, if this is a special 510K for that. If you're in Canada, of course, you're going to have to do a new a Canadian license update there as well. You're going to have a new model. You're going to have to update your UDI, of course, and so you'll have a UDI for each level of packaging. In addition to that, you're going to have a new product code. You're going to have new UDI codes. You're going to have to update your UDI database. If you're doing business in Europe, you're going to have to update UDAMED as well. You're going to be using the same GMDM code because you didn't change what the intended use of the device is, but it's now rechargeable. You're going to probably have to have, like if you have website content on your website telling people how to use the product, you're going to want to update that as well with new videos. You're going to, if you have standardized reason codes for complaints and adverse events for your product, you're going to probably want to add something specific related to batteries getting hot and overheating and catching on fire. Those would be big things that you'd want to put in there, even if the likelihood is zero because you did all that special design and testing. So you get the idea. This is what seemed like a really itty bitty tiny change is massive. All these things have to change, and you got to plan that over time. Now, I haven't even got into, oh yeah, we're not going to offer the alkaline version anymore. So when your alkaline battery no longer works, you can't use that anymore. So planned obsolescence of the old model is something. And for a time, we're going to have both products on the market because certain distributors will have inventory. So you have to plan your obsolescence. That's part of the quality planning there too. This is a massive amount of work for such a small little design change. We're just changing a battery. That's all we're doing. Nothing else. And you might not even have a choice about it. Maybe the battery supplier you're using can't use that anymore. Maybe you found a quality problem. You need the better battery performance of the lithium ion battery. Maybe you're trying to be WEEE compliant or REACH compliant, and that's why you're implementing this. Maybe the alkaline batteries are a problem from a RoHS 3 standpoint. There's all kinds of reasons why you might have to do this, and you might not have a choice. But what looks like a really simple thing, and somebody could very easily say, no big deal, you need a very thorough quality plan, and you really need all the departments. You really should be going around to every single department in your company saying, we're making this change. Can you think of anything that is affected by this change? Sort of a brainstorming session from every department in the company. What do you think needs to change? You could have a brainstorming session with everybody in the room, or you could go one by department and ask each department, we're going to make this change. What things do you anticipate? You want to know what resources is it going to take? How long is it going to take? What money? What time? What people? Do we need outside labs? Do we need to get quotes? You're going to talk about regulatory submissions. You're going to have to notify your notified body of a significant change. All this stuff is going to happen. You don't want to forget anything. So come up with a plan. Plan, then do it, then check that you did it right with a very thorough internal audit of all that process that you just did. Think about how many things that touches. There are so many things that were affected by that one little battery change. I challenge you to even finish that thoroughly. Check 100% of things in an internal audit in 2 days. And so there are some companies like, can we do a complete quality system in 2 days? I can't even do a verification of changes for a single part change, a battery change in 2 days. You go ahead and do your whole quality system. You're doing inadequate sampling if you're doing your whole quality system in 2 days. This one battery change would take me 2 days to do the internal audit for. So it's not a simple thing. And then after you've done that, now you also need to have corrective actions because it's not going to be perfect. There are going to be things that aren't done perfectly, things that were forgotten, things that were done behind schedule, whatever. You update those, and you're going to have CAPAs. You're going to have to do effectiveness checks on the CAPAs too. And you're going to have more training and more revising of procedures. Like, okay, we're going to clarify in our labeling when we make this kind of change, this is what we have to do. We're going to come up with a checklist so people don't forget that again. We're going to create an audit checklist for this type of change. We're going to update our change control form so we don't forget to do that. There's so many things that you could be implementing as CAPAs to prevent problems from happening the next time around you make a simple change like this. So if you're out there and you're making a change because of new revised regulatory requirements, a change to your design, or a change to a standard, you need a quality plan and you need to spell it all out, and then you need to check it, and then you need to implement corrective actions. And that's the right way to do it. And it's not just because I said so, and it's not just because that's what the standard says so. It's because if you don't, you're going to have some very unhappy customers. And you might have some stuff that can't be shipped because it doesn't meet any of the compliance requirements. I hope that was helpful to people. I'll put some hyperlinks down below for the webinars that are coming up next week in the new procedure. Thank you very much for your time, and good luck on implementing your own quality plan. See you next week live. Oh, next week is Christmas Eve, so we won't do a live webinar next Friday or live YouTube channel next Friday. We won't do one on New Year's Eve. That's also Friday. So we're going to do it the following week after that, the first week back in January. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.